Welcome back to the Hot List. The big news today is that Brett Favre reportedly has told Packers GM Ted Thompson that he plans to report the Packers camp this weekend. It's worth noting, though, that he hasn't signed his reinstatement papers yet. Still, looks like those intentions are that he'll be with the Packers this weekend, according to reports. Now, big news out of Green Bay today is all about Brett Favre. And to talk about it, we welcome in Michael Clemens, reporter from WSSP Radio in Milwaukee, who joins us on the phone. Michael, what's your reaction to this latest news about Brett Favre?
No surprise, David, because the Packers decided if it came to them having to trade Brett Favre, they were going to get as much value as they could out of it. The irony here is that Brett may have shot himself in the foot if he had any plans of getting back into the NFL and someplace other than Green Bay. Because when he made those comments about basically calling the Packers general manager Ted Thompson a liar, lying about talking to Steve Mariucci about a head coaching job in Green Bay, about the two guards, Wall and Rivera, and whether he was going to actually try and sign them and keep them when they went into free agency, or going after Randy Moss. When he made those comments, all the other teams in the league now know that there is a rift between these two, and that Brett ought to be able to get him for something less than a first-round pick. And so that's not going to help Ted Thompson, who won't give him up for at least some sort of value if, in fact, Brett decides to come into camp.
And you mentioned the first-round pick, and ESPN.com's Michael Smith is reporting that apparently the Packers are looking for a first-round pick if they are going to move the three-time MVP. You think that's an unrealistic amount to expect?
It seems to be if you're going to get a player for a year or two. Now, I think this probably just blows away fans from across the country that can't believe that the Green Bay Packers would give up a legendary, experienced player like Brett Favre, who could have at least a couple of playoff seasons left in him. But the fact of the matter is, the feeling here in Wisconsin and around Green Bay, probably 60% of the fans, although they still will always love the guy and appreciate what they did, they've been going through this indecision period that he's had in the offseason for 3 or 4 years. The media coverage is unbelievable here. It's so intense. It's nonstop around the clock. And they've gotten worn out. And you see the Packers have been very smart in this. And you know what? In order to sell their case to the Packer fans, because they certainly don't want to be, Ted Thompson doesn't want to be the guy that pushed Brett Favre out of Green Bay. You know what he says to them is, I've been going through the same thing myself, wondering what Brett wants to do, and at some point we had to move on with the organization.
Well, as you mentioned, Michael, there certainly has been an insatiable appetite, both nationally and, of course, in Green Bay about this story and how it develops. Let's deal with best-case scenarios. Give us the best-case scenario for Brett Favre, where he ends up playing or what he ends up doing, and best-case scenario for the Green Bay Packers.
Well, I guess if some team is willing to give up, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that high of a draft pick, then he gets with John Gruden, and Brett Favre becomes the next Vinny Testaverde, who he faced last year in November when Vinny came back and played a few weeks for the Carolina Panthers. Remember, that was the game with the two oldest quarterbacks to ever start an NFL football game. I think in Brett's mind, he's probably moved on. He can't get over the fact that they closed the door on him. Even when it was in late June, after they had finished their mandatory minicamp and sent the players home, he can't believe that when he wanted to come back, that the Packers actually told him no.
But what is the best case scenario then? I'm unclear.
So probably best case scenario really is for Favre to just stay home and not come into this situation, and people will remember him as a Packer. He's most comfortable with the Packers offense, with the organization, and that he doesn't go out there because he's only got one direction to go in, which is down most likely. Because he had, a near MVP season in what everybody thought was his final season in Green Bay.
And what's the best case scenario for the Pack? That Brett Favre just stays at home?
Absolutely, because they want this thing to be forgotten, this rift that he's had with the Packers general manager, and they want to keep selling those number 4 jerseys and bring Brett back for reunions and have that retirement of his number at the season opener against the Vikings. But if Brett is adamant that he still wants to play somewhere in the NFL, if the Packers can get a deal done for him, then, I can see Favre playing for 2 or 3 teams for the next, 3 years if he can stay healthy.
Well, Michael, final question. You're much closer to the Packers than many of us here at ESPN and obviously most of the fans as well. How do you see this playing out?
Well, talking to the players, a lot of them said after Brett, announced his retirement that it really sunk in that any time they hit the field when the guy was there with them for those 275 consecutive games, they had a chance to win. And they all realized that they had to step up and now figure out, how do we win without Brett Favre? So those players are coming into training camp having spent the last month, since their mini camp, watching this drama unfold, waiting to see what direction the team is going to take. I think they're all convinced that the team is going to be adamant, and it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, and that the Packers organization will probably do whatever they can to keep Brett Favre from setting field on that practice field Monday morning.
Yeah, that would be quite the spectacle. One final thing, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Any word on what it's like for him, what he's going through right now, being kind of caught up in the middle of this whole thing?
I think he's probably surprised that it came to this in terms of Brett contacting the team so late and kind of exposing his emotions about wanting to return and airing out the things that happened between him and the Packers general manager, Ted Thompson. Although, he's had 3 years to think about what this moment was going to be like. Probably just didn't realize it was going to be quite this intense that Brett would be right there. He was obviously prepared for a season of just trying to win football games and erasing whatever, the impossible task of erasing memories of just watching the fun style of watching Brett Favre plays on Sunday afternoons in Lambeau Field.
Well, the saga rolls on. I can't wait to see where this thing's going to end. I'm not sure, and everyone else is waiting to find out how it's going to shake down. We can't wait to see. Michael Clemens from WSSP Radio in Milwaukee, thank you for your time, and we'll be talking soon, I'm sure.
Keep you posted, David.
Our top stories, Brett Favre is one of our top stories. Where is he going to land? How is this going to shake down? And Devin Hester back with the Bears. We have the story of this two-time Pro Bowler rolling away next.